Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into something kind of fascinating, but also like a total facepalm moment.
Oh, yeah. Sounds right up our alley.
So we're talking about NASA and their Mars Climate Orbiter. You know, the one,
One went up in flames.
yeah, basically went poof because someone messed up the units, like inches versus meters.
Wait, seriously?
Yep, inches versus meters. It's enough to make you wonder if they left their measuring tape back on Earth.
You're kidding, right? That's
I know,
wild.
it's crazy, right? But here's the thing.
Okay, I'm listening.
What's interesting about this whole thing isn't just the oops moment itself.
Yeah, there's got to be more to it.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's like this little slip up reveals a much bigger problem,
Mm-hmm.
a total breakdown in communication, and like that whole double checking process.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
It's a warning sign for everyone, not just rocket scientists.
Right? Like we've all been there.
Think about it in your own work. Haven't you had those moments where things went sideways because someone wasn't clear or didn't pay attention to the details?
Absolutely, all the time.
And the source we're diving into today, it makes this amazing connection to that whole NASA mess.
Lay it on me.
They compare it to, like, architects designing a house with rulers while the builders are out there using spaghetti to measure.
Oh, wow. That's a perfect analogy.
It just shows how even brilliant minds can trip up if they're not speaking the same language, metaphorically speaking.
Makes total sense.
And here's where things get really mind-blowing.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
This source is saying that the Mars Climate Orbiter fiasco has a huge lesson for anyone creating content, especially writers.
Writers. Okay, go on.
Think of it this way. Just like that spacecraft needed every single part to work perfectly. Every sentence, every word in your writing needs to have a reason for existing.
So it's all about making sure your creative engine is firing on all cylinders.
Exactly.
You got it.
I like it.
Okay, so let's talk about actually building those awesome sentences.
All right, let's do it.
The text dives into what makes a sentence a masterpiece, comparing those dull everyday phrases to the ones that really pack a punch. Oh, yeah, I love those.
They even give us some examples side by side, like, it was a nice day versus the sky was blue, but it smirked like a fake friend.
Whoa, that second one is way more interesting.
Right. It's like painting a picture with words.
I'm totally with you on that.
So the takeaway here is all about the power of using vivid language and like injecting your writing with real emotion.
Yeah, you gotta make the reader feel it.
Exactly. It's about choosing words that hit your audience
Yeah.
right in the feels,
Yeah.
creating something that sticks with them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
And think about this. You could say, I was sad, which is fine.
Yeah, kind of boring though.
Or you could say, it felt like someone vacuumed my heart and then yanked the cord.
Oh, that one hits hard.
See the difference? One's just stating a fact. The other's making you feel it.
You're so right.
And you know what else the source really pushes?
What's that?
Taking ownership of our work, wouldn't you say?
Oh, totally.
It's not about playing the blame game when things go wrong. It's about stepping up.
Right, like owning your mistakes.
The text makes a big deal about personal responsibility, and they bring up NASA again.
Oh, interesting. How so?
They're saying just like NASA couldn't just rely on individual teams without everyone being on the same page, we can't just assume our audience will be cool with subpar work.
That's deep.
We have to develop that critical eye, be ruthless with our own editing.
Yeah. Be our own worst critic.
And always ask ourselves, would I actually want to read this? And does it really grab people and make them feel something?
Those are some great questions to ask.
Right. It's all about making sure our work is actually worth putting out there.
I couldn't agree more. You got to take pride in what you create.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that leads us to something super important that the source really drives home.
Oh, I'm all ears.
Just one mistake can have this crazy ripple effect. It can mess up the whole project.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that happen.
It's like that one tiny calculation error that totally doomed the Mars Climate Orbiter.
Wow, that's heavy.
One weak sentence, a bad image, even a note that's off-key can throw off the entire thing.
So it's like a domino effect.
Exactly. You get one thing wrong, and it sets off this chain reaction.
Ouch. That's a good way to put it.
And get this, the text uses this really powerful example to illustrate this point.
Okay, I'm curious.
They talk about saying, I love you, versus you were the gap I called breathing.
Whoa, there's a huge difference there.
Right. It's not just about being more descriptive. It's about understanding the weight of each word and how much of an impact it can make.
Yeah, you got to choose your words carefully.
And the source actually recommends a really cool resource for anyone who wants to level up their craft, especially when it comes to writing.
Oh, cool. What is it?
It's a book called Poetry Master.
Poetry Master. Never heard of it.
They don't go into too much detail about the book itself, But it seems like it's all about helping you avoid those creative crashes and burns we've been talking about.
Hmm, that sounds pretty useful.
Like having a manual for your creative spaceship.
I love that analogy.
So even if you don't check out that specific book, there are things we can do every day to make sure our work is ready to launch.
Yeah, like what kind of things?
One big thing is that hardcore self-editing. Really being tough on ourselves and looking at every single sentence, every word,
Yeah, you gotta be ruthless.
and ask, does this actually need to be here? Does it make the piece better, or is it just dead weight?
You're right. It's gotta earn its place.
So it's not just about catching typos or grammar mistakes. It's about making sure every single part is doing its job and making the whole thing stronger.
I'm totally on board with that.
And the source also talks about how important clear communication is, just like that mess with the NASA teams.
Yeah, that makes sense.
No matter what you're creating, whether you're working solo or with other people, making sure everyone is on the same page is crucial.
Communication is key for sure.
It could mean really spelling out your vision, getting feedback, or even just taking the time to explain your ideas clearly.
Yeah, you can't assume everyone just gets it.
It's like having a pre-flight checklist, making sure everything is aligned and ready to go before you hit that launch button.
Love that analogy.
And remember, this doesn't just apply to writing. It goes for anything where details matter.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Designing a product coding software, even making music.
It's all connected.
A tiny oversight, a missed connection, a note that's out of place, it can all have these ripple effects that mess up the whole thing.
It's crazy how one small thing can have such a big impact.
It really is, and you know what's so cool about this whole discussion?
What's that?
We started with a NASA failure, but we're finding all these amazing insights for any kind of creative work.
You're right, it's all about finding those universal lessons.
It just shows how these seemingly unrelated fields can teach us so much about our own work.
I never thought I'd be getting writing advice from NASA.
Right? It's pretty mind-blowing.
It is, and it just goes to show that you can find valuable lessons everywhere, even in failures.
That's so true.
By studying mistakes, whether they're ours or someone else's, we gain insights that can help us avoid making those same mistakes ourselves.
So it's not just about avoiding mistakes, it's about using them to learn and grow.
Exactly. Mistakes are just opportunities in disguise.
I love that perspective shift.
Instead of being afraid of messing up, we can see them as stepping stones on the path to getting better.
Yeah. But let's be real, putting that into practice can be tough, especially when those crashes and burns can be so discouraging.
It all comes down to resilience and a willingness to learn from every experience.
That's so right.
Setbacks are going to happen, but they don't have to define us.
That's a really empowering way to look at it.
By embracing a growth mindset and focusing on constantly improving, we can turn those failures into valuable learning experiences.
I love that idea.
It's not about being perfect, it's about having the guts and resilience to get back up and keep pushing for excellence.
That's a great reminder. It's not about being flawless. It's about having the drive to keep getting better.
And that's what separates the good from the great.
Even with the best intentions, sometimes those tiny mistakes still slip through.
Oh, for sure, we're all human after all.
What advice would you give to people who are listening when they hit those moments where they tried their best, but they still ended up crashing and burning?
That's a great question, and it's important because as much as we want to be perfect, mistakes are just part of the process.
Yeah, they have.
The key is to not let those setbacks stop you in your tracks. It's about owning the mistake, learning from it, and moving forward with even more determination.
That's powerful.
Remember, even the most successful people have had their fair share of failures. It's how they deal with those challenges that sets them apart.
That's a really good point.
It's not about never making a mistake. It's about having the strength to get back up and keep going.
So true.
It's about learning from those experiences and using them to fuel your growth.
I love that perspective.
It's about turning those setbacks into stepping stones.
This has been an incredibly insightful deep dive.
Yeah.
We've gone from the consequences of overlooking those little details to the power of language and even how to view failure in a whole new way.
It's been an amazing conversation.
What's really fascinating is how this one incident with NASA, this Mars Climate Orbiter mishap, can teach us such profound lessons no matter what we're passionate about.
It's a reminder that even the brightest minds and the most advanced systems can be brought down by seemingly insignificant errors.
It's like that saying, the devil is in the details. But in this case, it's not about the devil, but about the difference between creating something good and creating something truly extraordinary.
Absolutely. It's those subtle nuances, those carefully considered choices that elevate our work from the ordinary to the extraordinary.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the importance of being super detail-oriented to the power of learning from our mistakes.
It's been a whirlwind of insights.
But before we wrap things up, I want to bring it back to that main analogy. The text uses the Mars Climate Orbiter and why those seemingly small details are so important.
Yeah, that analogy really highlights how crucial it is to have clear communication protocols, a culture of precision, and to never underestimate the impact of those minor details.
It's like the butterfly effect, right? One tiny flap of a wing can cause a hurricane on the other side of the world.
Exactly in the same way, one seemingly small error in our work can have huge consequences that affect the entire project.
It makes you think about those times when we're so focused on the big picture that we forget to fine-tune the individual elements.
Yeah, it's like we're so busy looking at the stars that we trip over our own feet.
And the source material reminds us that those seemingly small details, those feet we might trip over, can make all the difference between success and failure.
It's about finding that balance between having a grand vision and paying attention to the nuts and bolts that hold everything together.
So it's not just about being a dreamer, it's also about being a builder, carefully crafting each piece of the puzzle to make sure it fits perfectly in the bigger picture.
Precisely. And the text emphasizes that this level of precision and attention to detail isn't about achieving some impossible perfection.
It's about recognizing that those small choices, those seemingly insignificant details, can have a huge impact on the quality and effectiveness of our work.
Absolutely every little thing matters.
Before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought inspired by the source material.
Okay, I'm ready.
The text compares our creative endeavors to a spacecraft.
I like that.
It challenges us to think of each word, each image, each note as a crucial part of that spacecraft.
That's a powerful image.
So my question to you is, if every creative choice you make is a component in your spacecraft, what kind of mission are you launching? And where will it take your audience?
That's a thought-provoking question and one I hope everyone listening will consider.
And remember, no matter how complex or ambitious your mission might be, it all starts with those basic building blocks, those seemingly small details that, when carefully considered and meticulously crafted, can take your creative work to incredible heights. Stay creative.
Stay creative, everyone. And that's about taking pride in what we put out there, no matter what we're doing.
Couldn't agree more.
And that brings us to a really important point that the source emphasizes.
Okay, hit me with it.
One mistake can totally snowball and affect the entire project.
Oh yeah, I've definitely seen that happen.
It's just like that one calculation error with the Mars Climate Orbiter.
One tiny mistake brought the whole thing down.
Exactly. And it's the same with creative work.
Oh, totally.
One weak sentence, a poorly chosen image, even a note that's off-key, it can throw the whole thing off.
It's crazy how one little thing can have such a big impact.
It really is. And the source actually uses a great comparison to illustrate this point.
I'm all ears.
They talk about the difference between saying, I love you,
Yeah.
and saying, you were the gap I called breathing.
Oh, those are totally different vibes.
Right. It's not just about being more descriptive. It's about realizing how much weight each word carries and the effect it can have.
It's like choosing the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And the source actually suggests a really interesting resource for anyone looking to improve their craft, especially in writing.
Oh, cool. What is it?
It's a book called Poetry Master.
Poetry Master, huh? I'll have to check that out.
It seems like it's all about achieving that level of precision and impact we've been talking about.
Like a guide to avoiding creative disasters.
Exactly. And even beyond specific resources like books, there are things we can do every day to make sure our work is top-notch.
Yeah. I'm all about practical tips.
One of the biggest things is meticulous self-editing, being super critical of our own work.
Yeah, you got to be tough on yourself.
Scrutinizing every sentence, every word, and asking, does this really serve a purpose? Does it make the piece better, or is it just filler?
It's like decluttering your writing.
Exactly. And the source also stresses the importance of clear communication, just like that breakdown with the NASA teams.
Right. Communication is key.
In any creative project, whether you're working solo or with others, making sure everyone's on the same page is crucial.
That's like making sure all the instruments are tuned before the concert.
Exactly. And that could mean being really clear about your vision, getting feedback, or just taking the time to thoroughly explain your ideas.
No room for assumptions.
And remember, this applies to more than just writing.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Any field where details are important, design, coding, music, you name it.
It's all connected.
A small oversight, a missed connection, even a misplaced note can have a ripple effect and compromise the whole project.
It's amazing how these seemingly small things can have such huge consequences.
It really is.
It's funny how we started with this NASA failure, but we're getting all this valuable advice for all sorts of creative endeavors.
It's all about finding those universal lessons.
It just goes to show that you can learn something from anything.
And that's the beauty of it. You can find inspiration and knowledge in the most unexpected places.
I love that.
Even in mistakes.
The mistakes are just opportunities in disguise.
Exactly. And by studying those mistakes, whether they're ours or someone else's, we gain insights that can help us avoid making those same mistakes ourselves.
So it's not just about avoiding mistakes, it's about embracing them as chances to learn and grow.
Absolutely. It's all about perspective.
Instead of fearing mistakes, we can see them as stepping stones on our journey to mastery.
I like that a lot.
But let's be real, actually putting that into practice can be tough,
Oh, for sure.
especially when those crashes and burns can be so discouraging.
It all comes down to resilience and being willing to learn from every experience.
That's so important.
Setbacks are going to happen, but they don't have to define us.
It's not about how many times you fall, it's about how many times you get back up.
Exactly. And by focusing on constant improvement, we can turn those failures into valuable lessons.
I love that idea.
It's not about being perfect. It's about having the grit and resilience to keep pushing for excellence.
That's a great reminder.
And that's what separates the good from the truly exceptional.
But even with the best intentions, those tiny mistakes still manage to slip through sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. We're all human after all.
What advice would you give to our listeners when they hit those moments where, despite their best efforts, they still end up crashing and burning?
That's a really important question, and it's crucial to remember that as much as we strive for perfection, mistakes are just part of being human.
They're inevitable.
Exactly, and the key is to not let those setbacks paralyze us. It's about acknowledging the mistake, learning from it, and moving on with even more determination.
That's powerful stuff.
Remember, even the most successful people have faced their fair share of failures. It's how they react to those challenges that sets them apart.
It's not about never making a mistake. It's about having the courage to keep going.
Absolutely.
It's about turning those setbacks into stepping stones on the path to success.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive.
It really has.
We've gone from exploring the impact of overlooking those tiny details to understanding the power of language and even reframing how we think about failure.
It's amazing how much we've uncovered just from this one NASA mishap.
It's like that saying, the devil is in the details.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one.
But in this case, it's not about the devil. It's about the difference between creating something good and creating something truly exceptional.
And that's where the magic happens.
It's in those subtle choices, those carefully crafted details, that we elevate our work from ordinary to extraordinary.
It's about taking it to the next level.
We've covered a lot today, from the importance of paying attention to detail to the power of learning from our mistakes.
It's been a whirlwind of insights.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to that central analogy. The text uses the Mars Climate Orbiter and the importance of those seemingly insignificant details.
Right back to where we started.
It's a powerful reminder that even the most brilliant minds and complex systems can be compromised by what seem like minor errors.
It's a humbling thought.
It emphasizes how important it is to have clear communication protocols, a culture of meticulousness, and never underestimating the potential impact of those small details.
You just never know what little thing could make all the difference.
It's like the butterfly effect, right?
Oh.
One tiny flap of a wing can set off a chain reaction that leads to a hurricane on the other side of the world.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
In the same way, one tiny error in our work can have cascading consequences that impact the entire project.
It's all connected.
And the text emphasizes that this principle applies not only to the technical aspects of our work, but also to how we communicate our ideas.
Right, how we express ourselves.
Just as a misplaced decimal point can throw off an entire calculation, a poorly chosen word or phrase can derail the entire message we're trying to convey.
So it's not just about the technical stuff, it's about the art of communication too.
Exactly. It's about choosing our words carefully and making sure they have the desired impact.
It's about being intentional with our language.
And this makes me think about those times when we're so focused on the big picture, the overall concept, that we neglect to fine-tune the individual elements.
Yeah, I've been there.
It's like we're so busy gazing at the stars that we trip over our own feet.
Ouch, I felt that.
And the source material reminds us that those seemingly small details, those feet we might trip over, can make all the difference between a successful launch and a disastrous crash.
It's a delicate balance.
It's about finding that balance between having a grand vision and paying meticulous attention to the nuts and bolts that hold everything together.
It's about being both a dreamer and a doer.
So it's not just about being a dreamer, but also being a builder, carefully crafting each piece of the puzzle to ensure it fits perfectly within the larger whole.
It's about seeing the big picture and the small details at the same time.
Exactly. And the text offers a powerful reminder that this level of precision and attention to detail is not about striving for some unattainable perfection.
It's about recognizing the impact that those small choices, those seemingly insignificant details can have on the overall quality and effectiveness of our work.
It's about striving for excellence in everything we do.
And that's a goal worth pursuing.
Before we sign off, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought inspired by the source material.
Okay, I'm all ears.
The text uses the analogy of a spacecraft to represent our creative endeavors.
I love that analogy.
It challenges us to think of each word, each image, each note as a vital component in that spacecraft.
So every choice we make matters.
So my question to you is, if every creative choice you make is a component in your spacecraft, what kind of mission are you launching? And where will it take your audience?
That's a question worth pondering.
It's a reminder that we're all on a journey, a creative mission, and every decision we make shapes the course of that journey.
And the destination is up to us.
And remember, no matter how complex or ambitious your mission might be, it all starts with those fundamental building blocks, those seemingly small details that, when carefully considered and meticulously crafted, can propel your creative work to unimaginable heights. Stay creative.
Stay creative, everyone.